Hey, Bulls and Bears, we're back. Nice to see you. It is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, back with another dose of economic reality. We've got some scary, in my opinion, some scary information to go over today and some charts that just look uh, bizarre, bonkers. I mean, pick your word. We're going to look at it here in just a minute. We're also going to talk about the dollar. Something really strange, something really weird has been happening to the dollar, something that a lot of people did not expect. And yes, my last video, I had a pretty bad sunburn. It's mostly gone by now. And thank you. A couple of you felt sorry for me, I think, and you gave me a tip. I appreciate it. First of all, thank you to Josh Martin, 7326. He told me to go buy myself some Ben and Jerry's ice cream. If it's not $8, yeah, and I think Ben and Jerry's, they don't even sell gallons. Isn't it like a little pint or a quart for like $7 sometimes? So thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Also, thank you once again to Silver Dragon 7160. Appreciate the kind tip and support, and actually the words of encouragement. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. All right, so let's get into it. The economic collapse continues, and I think when you see this next bit of information, this next visual, it's a chart. I'm going to bring it up here. This is the interest that we're paying, the federal interest being paid here on the national debt. And let me move myself up here out of the way of the chart here, so you can see this goes back all the way to like 1940, late 1940s, and this is the interest in billions of dollars that we are paying. And if we look to the right edge here, ever since about late 2020, we're parabolic, folks. We're nearly straight up and down on this. The federal government current expenditures, just interest alone. And because this is in billions of dollars, if you look to the right here or to the left side, where it says 1,000, that actually is $1 trillion, right? So we're right about approaching actually $1 trillion annually. This is annual expenditures just on interest alone, right? So now we've got debt accumulating, increasing at the fastest pace ever, but the interest on the debt increasing also, but not just because the debt's increasing the fastest, because the interest rate is higher. And this is beginning to look like Venezuela, Zimbabwe type of stuff here to me. I mean, I don't think we've really got into the deep woods yet, if you know what I mean, or the deep weeds. So please let me know how this ends. How do you think this ends? But the other information I want to bring up here is something that might be pretty surprising to a lot of people. We're looking at a chart here of the US dollar. This is a 1 month chart. Look at the strength here just over the past month. People were thinking with the BRICS nations coming out announcing the expansion of the coalition of countries that are trading outside of the dollar. People thought that would crash the dollar. People, thought that would send precious metals skyrocketing. But I said right here in this channel, I don't think they're going to introduce a new 100% gold-backed currency. And I was correct. The announcement was the expansion of the BRICS countries that are going to be trading outside of the dollar. And I don't want to downplay that. I think that's very significant news. But look at the strength of the dollar. Because of the higher interest rates, the dollar is still very, very strong. Now, you know, and you should know anyways, that the dollar is being compared. When we look at the strength of the dollar, it's being compared to other fiat currencies around the world, which hardly any of them are backed by gold. The ones that are backed by gold are just fractionally backed by gold, a very minuscule amount. Some countries have, brought gold back into their currency system, but still 99.999 repeating is just fiat money, just like the U.S. dollar. But compared to those other currencies, pretty strong here. If you just look over the past month, let's expand out to a year, right? So you can see the trend is down, but just over the past month, it has strengthened ever since the beginning of July there, going on 2 months now. So pretty interesting. And, with the higher interest rates, the Fed being in dollar protection mode, this is really not too much of a shocker. I think to some people it may be shocking, but it's not too much of a shocker. If you park your money right now, you get a 5% return. I've got a 5% return in my 401k right now. It's kind of nice just to sit back and actually collect interest, right? The first time that's happened to this level in a very, very long time. And we haven't seen interest rates this high. We haven't seen it this high since right before the financial crisis, before they started cutting, right? So August 2007, right about where we're at right now. And of course, they started cutting after that. So many people are predicting that cuts are right around the corner for the central bank here in the U.S. And if you look back at previous rate hikes, they didn't last long before they had to cut. Right? You see up and down, up and down, up and down, and the increases usually are always lower than the previous highs as far as how high they were able to raise interest rates, right? So we see the big spike in the early 80s, down then went up again in the 90s, but all lower than the previous highs. But now something different this time because of the massive cost of living, inflation, and the fight against it. We're now matching where we were prior to the financial crisis, folks. That's something else that's never happened. All previous hiking cycles have ended up where they had to cut before getting back to where the rates were as far as the previous highs go. So this is pretty significant, folks. We're seeing a lot of things that are very, very unusual and just a lot different than what we've seen before. We've never seen the interest on the national debt go straight up and down like this. Again, please let me know how this ends. Are we headed for something very, very soon? I've always said the second half of 2023, I think, is looking like it's going to be a lot of fireworks popping off here. And we're almost done with the end of August. So we have 4 months to go approximately, and what's going to happen. Please let me know down below. In some recent reports, we talked about how they're keeping the housing market propped up. We've got Zillow coming out with 1% mortgages. We've got Zillow also predicting that home prices are going to rise by over 6% next year, probably on the back of their 1% mortgage, right? So crazy times. They're doing a lot of things to keep this housing bubble propped up. And this is not good. We want to see the cost of living come down. When people get buried under this much debt, typically in the past, throughout history, we've seen deflationary corrections and deflationary recessions. Now we're seeing an inflationary economic downturn. Of course, they're not going to call it a recession yet because they can just uh, expand people's credit card limits enough to keep them spending. And that gets chalked up as GDP. So therefore, technically, there's not a recession. But folks, this doesn't end well. The debt can't go on forever. Something has got to break, and I think very, very soon. But let's get into some other information here. Now, instead of looking at the dollar compared to other fiat currencies, known as the dollar index, take a look at the purchasing power of the dollar. And this goes up to 2020. Obviously, it's gotten worse since 2020, but you get the point here. This goes all the way back to prior to 1920. And here's what you see right here. The Federal Reserve Act creates a central bank. So they're talking about 1913 here, with the ability to manage the country's money supply. And boom, you see a crash. You see a crash in the purchasing power of the dollar shortly after that. Just a coincidence, though. It wasn't their doing at all, right? U.S. President Roosevelt criminalizes the possession of gold. How crazy is that? They criminalized gold. You couldn't own gold. You were a criminal if you owned gold. That still blows my mind nowadays, but the way the world's looking right now, it wouldn't really surprise me if they did something like that again. To push everyone into the digital currency. Bretton Woods in the early 1940s establishes the U.S. dollar as the global reserve currency. 1971, the gold standard is abandoned. And look, another huge downslide after we completely detached from gold. Again, a coincidence? I don't think so. You don't think so. Nobody thinks so that I know of. Also, in 2020, the U.S. money supply grew by 3.8 trillion, equal to 20% of all dollars ever created, ever, 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 ever. Now, the central bank had their little meeting down in Jackson Hole, and there they talked about how the road uh, to fight inflation is a long road, and it's going to be, a tough fight or a tough travel. But they're not gonna make it down the road. They're not going to be able to stop this inflation. They're doing it all wrong. We need to bring more production back, and we need to limit the number of dollars that could be thrown at the problem. Remember, the more dollars that are thrown at the problem to help it, the worse it gets. And I know that seems counterintuitive, but when you have a bunch of people spending money, and it's not just people spending money, I'm not just talking about stimulus checks. When you have a bunch of money creation and spending in general, it creates an inflationary environment, right? So we need less money creation, more production. We need to stop punishing people for working. And there's people out here making, 30 something dollars an hour, still struggling to get by. I'm going to bring up a video here. Let's listen to someone making about, I believe it was $35 an hour, and how they're simply struggling and they have to eat bread and I think peanut butter. Take a listen. Take a listen to this person.
I'm having a day, or I'm having a life. I don't know, man. I just don't know what to do anymore. I'm sitting outside work, crying my eyes out in my vehicle because I can't function anymore. Financially, I don't understand anymore. I don't understand how I make $34 an hour and I can't function. I can't pay my bills. I can't even literally keep gas in my car to get to work 3 days a week because I can't afford it. Like, I get paid and it goes to car, mortgage, a couple little bills, and then maybe $80 in food.
I wonder how many people feel like this, but when you look at them and when you speak with them, they're smiling and they're basically just faking it. But this is how they feel on the inside. I mean, with the levels of debt, it's got to be, I think most of the population may be feeling like this. Hopefully, they're not all breaking down crying like this. But how many people feel like this?
For the week. And I literally only buy groceries when my daughter's home now. On the weeks that she goes with her dad, which is Monday to Monday, what I've started doing is I buy a loaf of rye bread, and I work really hard to keep that one loaf of rye bread lasting me the whole week, and I eat peanut butter. So I'll eat peanut butter toast whenever I'm hungry. And it's been fine. It's been working just fine.
She's eating peanut butter and bread, pretty much. That's it. Making 34 something dollars an hour. Whoa.
I'm good with that. That's fine. But last week, I guess I was a little extra hungry a couple days, so I had toast in the morning and toast in the evening, which that's not in my budget. So I ran out of bread on like the Thursday or even the Friday, I don't know. Either way, at 47, I had to see if my mother could buy me a loaf of bread so that I could eat for the weekend before my daughter got home.
Fast forwarding a little bit here.
Crawl space in my house right now literally has like 8 inches of water in it. And it has for months. And it's like filled with mold. And so all I've been doing for the last few days is going online trying to figure out how I could get a septic pump. And then if I can actually sell enough stuff to afford one, then I have to learn how to install it.
People can't afford the repairs on their homes. The point is, I don't want to play this whole video. It's just too sad for me to watch somebody, talk about this. But the point is, a lot of people are house poor, and you're going to see a lot of homeowners pretty soon, I think, in this situation where the repairs start adding up, everything else, the cost of everything starts adding up, and people are going to be forced to sell their homes. We're going to ultimately see inventory in the housing market increase. I don't think there's going to be a housing crash, but things are going to start turning and taking a turn, I think for the worst. What else is happening in the financial world here? Well, some big news here. Rite Aid filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. That's a reorganization. And this is largely stemming from a lawsuit that they overfilled prescriptions for painkillers, I believe opioids. But also you have a lot of five-finger discount stuff going on there. Pretty much all the retailers, brick and mortar retailers, are suffering with all of the loss of items from their store. And it's hurting their profits. And what's that going to lead to? More layoffs. This is out of Forbes. Sinking profits means companies are going to be doing more layoffs. Some people think that a company has to start losing money before they start laying people off. No, all they have to do is see their profits decrease. In other words, they're still making money. They're just not making as much as they did previously. So that sends out the red flag. And what do? They start cost cutting, including doing those layoffs. All right. So obviously, with the profits plunging and dropping, do you think the layoff picture is going to get better or worse? I mean, obviously, it's going to get worse, right? But if you believe Zillow, the economy is resilient. Home prices are going to go up 6% next year. Everything's fine. All these home buyers are out there just with their big down payments, even though they've got to offer a 1% down payment to get people to buy a home. Speaking of buying homes, take a look at this here. 2021, $500,000 house with a 3% interest rate, $2,108 a month. 2023, the same house, 7% interest rate, $3,327 monthly payment. And it's actually worse than this because this assumes a 20% down payment. Most people are not coming in with a 20% down payment. Of course, that's why you have to have Zillow out there with a 1% down payment program. And other lenders also, it's not just Zillow, right? Folks, they want to extend this economic illusion. They want to push it past the end of 2024, in my opinion. Will they be able to keep things propped up, keep the bubbles inflated until then? Or are consumers, like the person we just heard from a few minutes ago, are the consumers just going to be too maxed out on their credit cards, hitting their credit card ceiling, before the end of 2024. I mean, I think it's got to happen. It's got to break before 2024, and maybe we'll see a bunch of other programs come out where people are allowed to skip their payments. All right, let's go to another video here regarding the cost of living inflation, boomers versus Gen Z, and this person breaks it down very nicely. Take a listen.
1970, the average home was $15,000. It is now $436,000. It has gone up 29 times. Rent was 108, is now 2,000. That's gone up 20 times. College was 500, it's now $11,000. That's gone up 20 times. Gas was 36 cents, it's now 380. That has gone up 10 to 12 times. But what about the income? In 1970, the average person was making $9,000. Today, they're making $56,000. That has only gone up 6 times compared to everything else. But this is where it gets sad. In 1970, the average household had 3.5 children. Today, it's only 1.9.
People are scared to have children.
And the crazy part is that back in 1970, the average household, 47% were dual income. It has now jumped to 65% is dual income. So millennials and Gen Zers under the household are putting in more hours than the boomers did. We're both working 40 hours a week, but you got way more bang for your buck and more children.
People nowadays are working a lot more, dual income households, but yet massively in debt still.
To expand your family, own a house. Things are so drastically different. The birth rate is plummeting because people can't afford it. So we need to make a change so that we can turn this around.
Folks, there's a lot of people out there talking about making a change. Absolutely, I agree. We need to make a change. But it's usually misdirected. It's usually, oh, we need to print more money and have more programs to help people when, like we talked about earlier, and like we try to remind you pretty frequently, that's going to make things worse. We need more production. We need people working. We need to be making things, growing things, manufacturing things, and we need to go back to sound money. We need to go back to sound money. That's uh, the basis of all this is the fake money, throwing money at the problem. When you throw money at the problem, it doesn't fix it. It makes it seem like you're helping for the moment, but it makes it worse in the end. All right, everybody, I hope you're doing well. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this report up. Please let me know what you think about all this. What do you think about the dollar losing its 97% of its purchasing power? That chart. What do you think about the straight up and down hyperbolic there interest that we're paying on the debt? What do you think about the lady making $34 an hour eating bread, unable to fix her home? Bonkers times, folks. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're stacking real money, aka silver is what I like to do. Hope you're able to do some of that. A few ounces each month. It adds up if you keep at it. And I think that's where we're headed to, sound money. But how long is it going to take, and how much of a struggle are we going to see before we get there? And I hope you are making a little interest too on this money. If you have money set aside in an account, in a retirement account, money market, etc. I hope you're making a little bit of interest on it. But is the interest enough to keep up with the cost of everything, folks? What do you think down in the comments? Please let me know. Outro song for this one. Thanks everybody for being here. Big love. Keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.